Hi everyone, I'm Heather.
And I'm Nigel.
And on today's episode of H&N Creations, we are going to share with you how we built an off-grid cabin in Michigan's beautiful Upper Peninsula.
So this is it. This is the spot. The format of this is going to be a little different. We were unable to take a lot of video. So we took a lot of pictures, and that's pretty much what you're going to see here. You'll notice this spot as I walk down the path. That is where we're building the cabin. And we lived in that tent while we were up here for like 3-4 day weekends. All the time we built it, which took about 3 months roughly. This spot over here, these are logs that we had cut, and you'd seen those in other videos. This is getting ready for the mill to be brought up, which is what we use to cut a lot of the wood. So one of my favorite parts was probably tent camping while we built this, don't you think?
Oh, I absolutely agree. It was actually pretty fun.
Yeah. The smell of the coffee up there with the percolator is fantastic. Great breakfasts. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun too.
It was.
So as with any project that you start, you need to get some tools for it. And this tractor was probably the biggest one that we purchased. It wasn't really my idea, it was actually your idea.
Well, it wasn't all my idea.
Well, I didn't fight you, and I'm glad because moving this brush, fantastic. The box blade attachments, which we borrowed from a neighbor, helped us to clear out a flat area to put the cabin. So it came in clutch for a lot of different things. Once we had the area all cleared out and level as best we could, we had to tamp it and get ready for the cinder block foundation. Before we did all that, we wanted to make sure we had a good dinner and a good night's sleep. And that night, it was a great night's sleep. I mean, this is the footage that we took. We went to sleep to this. It was so loud, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing hearing all those frogs.
Now the foundation, we decided to basically use the sand that was there, tamp it down with a 12 by 12 hand tamper, and then lay down the cinder blocks. While we were doing that, it started going pretty smooth, and then the rain came and it was a deluge.
Yeah, and we decided we weren't going to let the rain stop our progress. So we put up an easy up and kept on working.
And it worked out, actually, because,
Shortly after that, the sun came out.
Yep. Once we started getting the floor joists together and we had our deck done, that's when things started to come together. We felt like we were accomplishing something. During this build, we used all hand tools, battery-operated tools. We didn't have a generator on site, but we still made really good progress for what we had.
Jeez, I remember when we got this part done. Seems like so long ago. But yeah, it was really nice to see this part done. And when we got to putting the plywood on, lessons learned, if I can give you any advice, paint this or cover it with tarp if you have to walk away, because we did not do that, and it rained and it warped.
Yeah, it did. We paid for that later. You'll see in the video.
Yeah, how unfortunate.
This is probably the most gratifying bit of the build. When you get your walls up, it's a relatively easy task, and you and I work really well together. Yeah, I mean, we stood this up in probably a few hours, and then we felt like we actually had a structure. And, when you're doing this and you're out there, there's nothing more gratifying than seeing, I built this, I have something, wall by wall by wall.
So don't try this at home, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this project did not go without frustration. And this measuring tape paid the ultimate price for that frustration.
I'm glad you got that picture. That tape sucked. So at this point, the walls are done. It's framed, at least the bottom part. And then we were able to hang up the plywood on the outside. To do that, some of the things, and you'll probably see these videos if you search around, you just put like a little ledger board at the bottom, just a little 2x4, and then you set these up on it, line them up, screw them in. I do like screws for these, it's just a lot easier. Some folks like nails. But we kept going round and round and round and just finished up all the outside. We were getting ready for the rafters. That was a little more work. So for the rafters, we went with a 2x6x16 along the top, put the hangers on it, and then put the boards up. But to get it up there, my wife was on one end, I was on the other. We walked it up with our hands and screwed it in. And she's strong.
Yeah, thank goodness it wasn't a windy day because that was hard.
Well, after a well-deserved break, you were able to get this pretty incredible shot, which
Yeah.
is probably one of my favorites.
Amazing.
Yeah. Now the rest of it, just like we did the walls, we put down a board, and then we started putting the sheets on the roof. Went through and through and through, put them up one by one by one. Building this overhang was something I'd never done, so you'll see a little bit later. I feel I did it right. It's held up really well. And for the doors and some other bits, my parents came up, which was really great to see them. They helped us hang the door and some other things, and we actually got a lot done that day. Even started with some of the roof. I put down the vapor barrier on top of the plywood and then started laying down this roof. It went a lot easier than I thought, being my first metal roof. So I did have some frustration on the top. I didn't like it up there. But with some safety rope that I had in some of these, it made things a lot easier.
This was an exciting moment when we got to wrap the rest of the house in the vapor barrier, and we also started laying out some boards for our little deck and cutting out a window. That was probably one of the most amazing parts, at least in the beginning process of all this. Getting in that window, it let in fresh air. It was so great to have a window.
Yeah, the window, then we wanted more.
More. Yeah.
So we ended up with 3 total. You'll see those in the video, but the window was a big deal. So the last piece before we started working on siding was basically getting the porch overhang done. I hadn't done it before, but I did a little research and it came out really well, actually. The metal roof went on nice and smooth, and overall, pretty darn happy with it.
You did a really nice job on it, babe.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and then we had to finish up some of the vapor barrier, and we put in a couple more windows. This was the one we put up above the loft. So that was the third and final. Nighttime was great up here, though.
I love nighttime up there.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So up until now, we did use the mill to create like some of the beams right there in the porch, but where it really came in handy was the siding. We basically cut pine logs. We flattened 3 sides, and I cut them all in about a 1/2 inch, leaving one edge live. Going through these, cutting and sorting took a long time, but I absolutely love this. I've probably only seen this on a handful of little cabins, so to me this was my favorite part of finishing things up, we'll say.
So here we're about a month and a half or so into the build, and the siding is so great looking, and you did such a great job on that, babe. But it took a long time to get that all finished.
It did. We took a lot of pictures because, it took forever, but I love it.
It did.
But now we're ready to move on to the deck.
After we got the siding done finally, it was time to do the deck, which was pretty exciting. So here I am screwing down all the deck boards, which helped to finally complete the outside of the cabin and all the work that we had done over the last 3 months.
It was nice. We had a place to put stuff, and then the next thing we had to do, right here.
Steps. Those were probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you're, schlepping stuff from the vehicle and inside. You need all these small bits, and it just finishes it up, So above the deck there, we just basically reinforced that, and I started putting in the soffit boards, and we plan to put some of that almond caulk in between them, make it look like the chinking. I think that looked kind of cool, but there's some more finishing work that needs to be done. The interior. Well, because we didn't cover it or paint the floor and it was out in the elements, we had to put floor leveler down to fix some of the warps in it so we could put our floor down after that. Most of this was Heather's realm. She took over.
My job was putting up the insulation, and I remember that day it was so hot, so the insulation was sticking to me and it was sweaty, and of course I had no way of washing it off, but I pushed through, and I think overall it turned out really nice.
You rocked it out.
Thank you.
And right up there at the top by the soffits, all the expandifoam and stuff and the screen, we had to keep the bugs out because there was nothing protecting us from the soffit on the front porch. And you did good.
Thank you.
And we got the loft in. That was early on. We didn't show much about that, but that's a work in progress. But we were able to finish all of the insulation except the gables for the season. And this was sort of our final thing that we did. So this will show you a quick picture of the floor. Granted, we had to take it out and put the floor leveler down, but this is what it looks like now after we had fixed it. So that was something that we learned, and hopefully if you get into a position like this, you could save yourself some problems. But it looks really good. Just a floor we picked up at Home Depot, fairly inexpensive. Really what you want for a cabin, easy cleanup. It was a great build. We got to experience so much. Everything around here, the vegetation's great, all the critters we ran into, lots of weird critters. Blueberries all over the place. It's just going to be fantastic from here on out. So what's left? We have more videos coming. We're going to wrap the inside of it with vapor barrier, and then we're going to be building our own countertops and our own cabinets, a breakfast nook. So all those videos are in progress right now. So stay tuned for those. But one thing that I want to close with, for anyone that wants to do something like this, you can do it. No matter what your experience level is, you'll find a way to do this. I've never felt stronger, and I would say you'd probably feel the same way.
I absolutely do.
Yeah, anybody can do this, and it is so much fun, and the gratification is amazing. Doing this stuff yourself is second to none. It's a passion. It turns into a passion if it already isn't. Now, if you found the video helpful and you liked it, please click that like button. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content, and hit that little bell so you get notifications. But until next time, thanks for watching.